And I actually overdosed and had my near-death experience. That was
Wow.
a beautiful experience in that it was just like floating in unity consciousness, fractals, mandalas, like that loving, nurturing, yummy energy. And then I just remember a female voice, my guide could be my higher self, and she was like, "You're not done yet." And I was like, "Oh, hell no." Yes, I am good. And she's like, she was very eloquent. Think like Matrix style, the Oracle of Matrix. And she was all like, if you choose to go back, you're going to help a lot of people understand their abilities. And so I was like, okay, obviously I chose to come back.
Welcome to the Light the Day podcast, where we explore spiritually transformative experiences. And I'm your host, Julie Clough. And as always, I'm going to remind you to subscribe, like, comment. We love your comments. Recently, we've been receiving more and more comments, and it's a lot of fun to see. So thank you for doing that. Today, I have a special guest, Sarah Grace. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Julie. Hello, everyone watching. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
I am so excited to have you share with us your story and your experiences. It just looks remarkable from everything that I've seen, so it'll be fun to dig in a little bit. But before we do that, will you share just a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So, oh boy, it's been a wild ride, you guys. So many people can relate at this stage of the game, right? I've been able to see, hear, and feel energy outside of the normal senses since I was a kid. That was a whole thing in and of itself. But eventually, I became a paramedic and I used the abilities in the 911 system to help people in transitioning and crises. And now I help people as a medical intuitive and psychic surgeon. So that's it to begin.
That's amazing. I already have questions, but I don't wanna get ahead of myself. And my first question, and I won't we're not even gonna dig into this yet, but I'm just gonna put it out there. And one of the questions I wanna ask is, like, how in the world, as open as you are, did you work in the emergency services? But hold on for a moment because 'cause we're gonna go back.
Yeah.
So, as a child, what was your experience? You talk about having these, uh open senses from a young age. What was that experience like?
My experience was so I grew up in the middle of nowhere in South Dakota on Standing Rock Indian Reservation, pre-internet. So very conservative family, a lot of violence, instability. And at the age of 7, I woke up and it began with auric field colors for me. And then it progressed over the next couple of weeks and months into feeling everybody's everything, knowing their intentions, and eventually into seeing deceased human spirits as well as Native American spirits and entities. And so I'm just a kid riding around middle of nowhere, South Dakota on my bike, trying to figure it out. I think this is normal, right? Because that was my experience that I didn't understand differently, but it was so much for me. I was really spacey and had a headache all the time. And so I was scared because my family dynamic was not safe or stable and it was extremely religious, conservative. So I was scared to say something about it, but I finally did. Like, what is this? And unfortunately, I was shamed and condemned with the hellfire and brimstone. Don't ever talk about this. We'll send you to a loony bin bit. So
Wow.
at the age of 7, I just remember that, like, swallowing that sense of, oh my gosh, there's something really wrong with me. Like, why am I like this? Just like anybody, you want to fit in, you want to be loved, you want to be accepted. And that really began my long odyssey of coming to terms with process around my sensitivities and gifts. And yeah, it's been a heck of a ride for sure.
I can't even imagine. And again, like so many questions coming up because it's interesting that you mentioned the age 7 because a lot of times, and I see this, I have grandkids now, and I see this with my grandkids. I have a couple of grandkids right now that I sense they're very open to the spirit realm, but also kids tend to come in open and then start shutting it down as they're conditioned at around the age of 6 or 7. They start to shut the curtain, if you will. And it's interesting you mentioned the age 7 because it's almost like you became more aware
Yeah.
instead of shutting it down.
Yeah, well, the egoic infrastructure, you're right on point with that because we're just wide open little energy balls, all of us, when we come in from birth to age 7. And around 7 to 8 is when the egoic infrastructure begins to really lock in the sense of I am and I like this, and these are my beliefs, and this is what I'm up to. The sense of separateness comes in, and it's part of the design of the human condition, if you will.
Yeah. When you say that you began to see the auric field, well, a couple of things. For those that are not familiar with what the auric field is, will you explain that what that is, and then also share how you experience that? Because there's different ways of experiencing that.
Oh, for sure. So it's the human electromagnetic field. Everything is molecular data and energy, for lack of a better way of saying it. We collectively are moving away from Newtonian physics, thinking that things are like, machines or solid, if you will. And now we understand everything is made up of vibrating particles that make the table or make the tree or make the human. And so we're going more into quantum. Thank goodness, because to us, we're all like, "Well, yeah." You know? And it's finally opening to the quantum reality and, energy medicine type experience. But for me, it's vibrating particles. So in the field itself, you have to understand the human body is just composed of trillions of vibrating particles, making up cells and organ systems and tissues, etcetera. So if you put your arms straight out, there's a bubble that's about the size of your arm straight out and above and below and in front and in back of you. And it's just this constant bubble. It's a semi-permeable membrane with thousands of energetic transmissions coming and going all day long. And we're always scanning like a little sonar our environment. So the mirror and motor neurons in the actual brain are picking up on this molecular data. We're scanning around like, I'm hungry. I need a burger. Like, where are we going to make this happen or whatever? That's dangerous or this is great, whatever it is. And the data and the information comes into the mirror and motor neurons, which then goes into the brain and synthesizes into meaning, if you will. So the auric field, for lack of a better way of saying it, electromagnetic pulsation, many, many layers, you guys. The auric field is not one color. It's adorable. People are like, what color am I? I'm like, well, because we have 7 primary layers, each in accordance with the 7 primary chakras. We have 12 total chakras pertaining to this reality, and 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 are not accessible by most people. That's the water into wine kind of stuff and the fire starter kind of stuff. It is possible, but it's not like the everyday. And we also have the hemispheres of the field. So it's very important front, back, left, right, above crown, below feet. And it's the energy is perfusing through each chakra and it's going through the field and it's all communicating. So a lot of times people think, oh, the second chakra is just for this, or the heart chakra is just for that. And it does perfuse in specific areas of the body, but the whole system is connected.
Yeah. Love that. Love that explanation. Thank you. It's funny because in our humanness and in our Newtonian way, we want to take everything apart.
Mhm.
I was just I had an interview a couple of weeks ago, and this woman was an artist and she was very intuitive and very open, and then she was like, I have yet to figure out like what part is my claircognizance versus my clair hearing. And I said, what if you don't have to take it apart? What if you're experiencing all of that and it's just this experience like we experience the world? When I see things, I'm also taking in information from my ears, from my hearing and my knowing and my feeling. All of those things are coming online at the same time. And I think it's the same with our spiritual senses, don't you?
Yeah, totally. It can be helpful if you have multiple gifts, if you will, to have an understanding of how to operate each of them, but we
Yeah.
can more in depth about that later. And a lot of artists and musicians experience the synesthesia, which it's not going to come in like, oh, this is clairsentience and this is claircognizance because you see color as music or like whatever it is. And that's its
Yeah.
own thing, So that's super cool.
So, you didn't have this understanding as a 7-year-old, I know. So, what did that look like for you? Were you seeing the layers as a 7-year-old, or were you seeing light around people? What was it you were sensing when you were young?
Predominantly just started with colors around people. Most people in today's world are very heavy and exhausted, so there's a lot of, like, rust, gray, brown colors in the field. Underneath in, like, the, more refined layers of the field, then we can get into, the red and the emeralds and those kinds of things. For the most part, though, people are wearing the energy like a heavy coat, and they're just, like, being smothered and condensed in their own stuff and then in collective stuff because they're not understanding how to discern what's theirs, clear their field, regulate their bodies, etcetera. So it began I was just, like, noticing, if you think go look at, a street light at nighttime, and there's the halo around it, it just looks like that. But there was different colors or different, like, textures in it. And then over time, I just really started to be able to tell, that person's not saying what they mean. That person's not being honest. Like, just clear as day, I started to kind of pick up on that. And then it led into, looks like that person has something wrong in their body, which when I'm a little kid, I had no idea. Now as a medical intuitive practicing it, but like I have been, I'm like, okay, we know what it is and how to navigate it. But it didn't make any sense to me, and again, I just thought that it was, how everybody was. So
Yeah. Wow.
Mhm.
Wow, I can only imagine how confusing that would have been as a child, especially when you started to communicate that these things were happening to you and to not feel like you were being heard or understood.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, like, you were living in an indigenous
Mhm.
community?
My family was adopted by the Lakota Sioux. My grandparents were missionaries adopted by the tribe. My dad was raised with the tribe, and so I was raised kind of akin. The town I lived in was surrounded by Standing Rock. We went to powwows and things when I was very young, and then over time, again, there was high levels of, alcoholism, mental illness in my family, high levels of violence, a lot of poverty, and so it wasn't a safe, stable environment to be able to kind of explore different elements of spirituality or even openness with like tribal wisdom. So I find it very interesting now after all these years of like circling back because shamanism, tribal
Yeah.
medicine, plant medicines, all of that stuff is totally my wheelhouse now. So
Yeah, that was what was interesting about your, explanation, because I thought that you would have been more embraced because of that indigenous, flavor or influence.
Mhm.
Do you think, and I don't wanna put words in your mouth, but I'm just curious, I wonder if because your family was kind of adopted by this community and having come in as missionaries, if it was the concern about that would have been heightened a little bit because of what they were seeing, because of the, conflicting messages in those 2 different
Oh, totally.
arenas.
Yeah, and the little town I grew up in was extremely conservative Christian, and so my family kind of, when I was younger, went more away from, like, the tribal roots and more into the extremely conservative Christian value, which is where the hellfire and brimstone for energetic
Right.
comes in. Because tribal stuff and Native American stuff, they're all like, "Well, yeah, of course everything is nature and consciousness," to them, it's made sense. And it's just really interesting being raised geographically in the area and around, and in the early '80s and the '90s, no internet, no outside connection, tons of addiction, tons of alcoholism, tons of racism, like, between it's just, the whole thing, it was there, so it wasn't, like, really supportive in that way. It's been fun as I've come to terms with and gone through my shadow work and gone through my trauma healing and really come out publicly with my abilities and my experience. I've gone full circle and like had a lot of classmates and, tribal members reach back out. And it's been a really beautiful, more, onerous and understanding way with it, if you will.
Right. I find your story and your experience fascinating because I feel like that's the world that we are attempting to bring in, where we are blending these different backgrounds and these different cultural experiences rather than resisting.
Totally.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
what was your so you grew up in this experience. When did you begin to well, just move us forward a little bit um, in where you went from there and when you started to kind of incorporate some of these gifts that you had, natural gifts that you had, the natural openness that you had into your life.
Many years later, so I was highly closeted and carried a tremendous sense of shame. Again, coming from extreme violence, my mother was actually one of my primary abusers, if you will, and she had died abruptly when I was 17 with a very short stint of cancer. That just blew my whole world apart. And then I try to go off to college. Everything is destabilized. I have no foundation, no understanding of who I am. I think there's something mentally wrong with me. I can't understand why I can't like shut down the stimulus. And so for me, I picked up drugs and alcohol and I was smoking 3 packs a day and I just went off the rails at 100 miles an hour because I was like, well, screw this crap, like I'm not into this. And I actually overdosed and had my near death experience. That was
Wow.
a beautiful experience in that it was just like floating in unity consciousness, fractals, mandalas, like that loving, nurturing, yummy energy. And then I just remember a female voice, my guide could be my higher self, and she was like, "You're not done yet." And I was like, "Oh, hell no. Yes, I'm good." And she's like, she was very eloquent, think like Matrix style, the Oracle of Matrix, right? And she was all like, "If you choose to go back, you're gonna help a lot of people understand their abilities." And so I was like, "Okay, obviously I chose to come back." What I didn't understand, Julie, is that I still had to figure it out. Just because I had a higher consciousness experience where I saw everything and it all made sense, doesn't mean that there was like all of a sudden this roadmap put together for me from how to get to point A to point B. So when I came back, I had to get real with myself. And this is one of the most pivotal takeaways that I hope that you guys can hear because everyone is gifted in their own way.
Yeah.
Everybody has something unique to share, to offer. You are your own best teacher and healer, and you are the guru for you. So it's about internalizing and taking ownership of your power. Well, I had to get real with myself. I mean, I was doing all kinds of, substances. I was smoking, I was drinking, I was promiscuous, I was doing all of these things. And I had to take them one at a time and step down and kick and start to get clean. And that took a lot of work. And then I had to extricate myself from the Midwest because it wasn't a supportive environment for me anymore. I went to Florida. I ran around in my early 20s, did modeling and pinup stuff, and it was fun and everything. But my soul was like, there's got to be more. So I ended up in Los Angeles, and my intuition, every time an ambulance or fire truck would go by, would be like, "That. Go do that." And I was so scared of it because I was like, "God, what are you talking about, man? I could kill people. Like, being a paramedic's a real thing, you know?"
Right.
I didn't understand that there was, like, a million little tiny steps between where you start and where you end up as a senior level medic, right? But I had nothing going for me. I was living at the ghetto in the ghetto at the time, like, I was just super lost, super overwhelmed with the sensations, and so I said, "Alright." And so I went to the UCLA EMT program, and I got my EMT license, and I went into South Central Los Angeles, and that's where I started, was Compton Inglewood for about 2 years, which is a fantastic place to run 911 just because it's busy and you're gonna see a lot. Plus, I loved the cultural immersion. I loved being out of my little South Dakota experience or my little, and it was into this whole experience that I knew nothing about. And I personally find that we learn the most as humans when we're willing to put ourselves in the position where we don't know, or we're like the minority, or it's just a completely different culture or experience, because it opens us up to this whole new experience to learn. And
Mhm.
so that began a 15 plus year paramedic career. And I'll tell you how the gifts finally unfolded in that.
Yeah. So, take us back to your NDE. What was that experience? And you said this and how old were you at the time?
1920.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, I overdosed intentionally, and, I was just over it, and it was just an out of body experience, the same heightened consciousness experience you have in ayahuasca or bufo or 5-MeO or any of this, plant medicines, or even holotropic breath work or shamanic journeying. It's all kind of paths, branches of the same tree. But it was really just a heightened awareness where I was like, "Oh, thank God I'm out of there." Like, I don't wanna deal with that crap anymore. I didn't particularly enjoy, the tangible reality. Gravity's not my favorite. I have so much energy, I could fill a stadium in a nanosecond, and I'm, like, the size of a 5th grader. So, like, I was trying to get out of my body, you know? Like, "What is this thing? So confining," you know? But yeah, I really learned a lot through that because that was my first of many. I've had many heightened consciousness experiences now, not only when I was working as a paramedic, but now when I work with clients and or in my own healing journeys through plant medicines and kundalini and all the things that I've done to heal myself. To me, it's all, again, going into that heightened thing where everything makes sense. We can see it from all sides. There's no good, bad, right, wrong. It's all just what it is. And then ultimately you get to choose, and I was enjoying my little floating in the fractal yumminess. And then I heard that lady's voice be like, "You gotta choose now. Like, you go any further, you can't go back." And that's when I was like, "Oh, okay." So, and like I said, obviously, I decided to come back.
Yeah. So when you were floating in that experience, and I imagine feeling that love, that peace, that serenity, were you seeing anything in that space? Was it dark? Was it light? Was it what
It
did
was
that
predominantly golden, like fractals and mandalas, if you know what those look like.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And, it wasn't a place, because it isn't a place. When you're in consciousness, you are everything. And so that's when it all makes sense, because you're just like, "Oh," like, suddenly you're everything. And the female voice that I heard, I've been asked, "Well, who was that?" Could have been a guide, could have been my higher self. To me, again, it was very oracle-like, like, very wise, and she wasn't messing around, She was very eloquent, but she was also like, "Alright,
Very
girl, you're gonna
straightforward.
you're gonna choose now." And so, obviously, I did, yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember what that felt like when you made that decision or what that experience was like when you made that decision?
Yeah, it was like going down a tornado slide and slamming back into my body, which then I was like, "Oh, oh, this again." And then I had to go deal with getting my stomach pumped and dealing with actually taking too many pills and the repercussions of that, and then I had to heal from that, and that's when I was really looking at, like, "Okay, so this is where I'm at." Like, for me, I had a lot of addictions, and so I started with I find it's easiest if you have multiple addictions, which most everybody does, even if it's sugar and scrolling, right?
Mhm, mhm.
If you're going to want to abstain or step down or going to quote recovery, if you subscribe to that, it was easiest for me to take like the easiest ones, like alcohol was easy for me, relatively easy for me to kick. And so I just let that go. And then I was clear of that for a couple of weeks or a month before I went on to the next. And for me, like, amphetamines and uppers were, like, kinda my jam, and so between that and then, smoking, 3 packs a day, those ones took a little bit more to kick because I actually had to go through some pretty severe withdrawals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Did did you have an understanding of this near-death experience, out-of-body experience? What was your understanding when you came back from that versus how you see it now? Is there a difference, or did you immediately recognize what that was?
No, not back then because, again, I didn't have language, I didn't have language, I didn't have community, I still wasn't supported by people who could be like, "Oh, okay, so the visions you're seeing are clairvoyance, and this is how you navigate spirits, and this is how you set boundaries, and this is how you don't take on everybody's stuff." Like, I didn't have any of that. So, to me, I just had this kind of heightened experience that I couldn't really talk about with anybody else, and again, early '90s girl, there's no internet.
No.
Can't get on Google this, you know?
You can't even walk into the library and go,
Yeah,
"I was floating in the ethers. What
right?
do I how do I understand this?"
Like, heaven forbid trying to get Western help or like the, mental help in the Western it's not supported, they just shoot you up with Haldol and, kinda lock you in there, so, for me, it was, going within and really feeling like, "Okay, this is all pretty screwed up," like, what I came through violence-wise was extreme, and, in addition to the onslaught of, sensitivity, and so I had to really assess, and this is where I'm at with so many people in sessions because 'cause I'm just hearing it across the board. People are exhausted of being here, and
Mhm.
not that they necessarily wanna die, they just don't wanna keep living this way or feeling the way that they've been feeling. So I had to come to terms with, well, obviously, I just wanted to die and then I opted back in. And so now I'm here. So what am I going to do about it for myself? I had such a chip on my shoulder. I had the martyr thing going, which a lot of sensitives and empaths have. Of poor me, I'm so sensitive, I can't function in the world. And you could look at my history, you can look at my experience and be like, "Yeah, girl, I totally get that." Like, totally get why you could subscribe or have that experience. But intuitively, I was like, "That's not gonna get me anywhere." Because ultimately nobody is coming to save you. Nobody's gonna come save me. It's what am I going to do about my life and my experience? Yes, all of those things happen to me. Yes, my sensory experience is like being on DMT 24/7, 365. It is a lot to manage, to navigate. What am I gonna do about it? Right? And that's when everything started to change for me because I was no longer looking or giving my power external, and I was like, "This hasn't been working. I'm sick of feeling this way. I'm sick of saying the same old crap over and over. What am I gonna do to change?" Yeah.
Yeah. How many years was it between that, uh, experience, the near-death experience, and when you began to study as an EMT?
4 or 5.
4 or 5 years? Okay.
Yep. So
And
I
then go
had
ahead.
a coming to terms with process where I was just kind of living life as figuring it out as in my early 20s while still trying to understand what all of that was, and it wasn't until I got into first responder, EMS, and the energies just started to work through me on calls that I was like, that's when everything really changed for me because I kept showing up as people were dying, and it is such an honor to
Mhm.
sit with in that you're literally in that transition, right, on the threshold between life and death, and to be able to sit with a person and kind of do what I needed to do treatment-wise as a paramedic, but then energetically understand what's actually happening as the person's dying and watching their loved ones come into the room, watching their soul leave the body, like, having this vast awareness. It really challenged all of my fear, all of my shame, and I was like, "How could this be bad?" Like, I'm helping a bunch of people, and that's when it all changed for me because my lived experience was contrary to the fear, that I had been projected upon as a kid.
So that's when you began to embrace the gifts that you had been experiencing all these years. You began to see the gift in it.
Mhm.
So when you say seeing the family members coming in and the spirit leaving, is this in your mind's eye or were you seeing this objectively?
No, full clairvoyant vision, like, my experience my strongest gift is clairvoyance, so I'm awash in color and sensory information all the time, and so going into a 911 call, I started to notice the difference between a traumatic death and a medical death. And
Mhm.
so first you guys got to understand, we are born to die.
Mhm.
There is nothing to fear in death. It is absolutely 100% inevitable for all of us. The real question is, will you let yourself live? So many people are so scared and so bubble wrapped and so like, that they're missing out. And then you're going to arrive at some point anyway. None of us know when. And this is why my biggest message now is like, please, you guys, just live your lives today, like right now, because every single day I would go on calls, car accident, fatality, or heart attack, or aneurysm, or whatever. And the person thought they had time,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so over time, though, I really started to see the difference between like angels or celestials would come on trauma calls. I can tell you what that looks like. And there's a very specific kind of experience that the soul has in a medical death, say hospice, end stage cancer, so, sepsis, any of those kinds of things, where the person, and we hear about this in NDE experiences all the time, they're laying in their bed or at their house or whatever, and their field begins to expand. So you hear the veil thins. Well, what are you talking about? What does that mean? That literally means that the auric field is beginning to thin and dissipate, and that allows all of the sensory information that is always around all of us. Then these people that are dying or are closing on coming close to death can start to see deceased loved ones, see pets. They start to astral travel to go visit their kids in a different
Mhm.
state. And we hear this all the time. It's very normalized now. In the moments of death, there's anatomy and physiologic things that happen in terms of like the respirations kick out, the heart rate eventually stops. They go through this weird guppy breath thing where they're not breathing. But then eventually it's called agonal respirations, and then they eventually just fully pass. But what's happening in terms of consciousness for the person is the consciousness, it looks like ribbons unfurling from the root, and it goes all the way out the crown, and it looks like a little water gun, like, shoots the soul out the top of the head, and it just looks like a little streamer of it's like a mist, if you will. What I would see then is that there's, either gonna be if the person was particularly religious, they're gonna have deities or religious archetype meeting them, and or most of the time it was family. So there's always this like happy little family reunion up in the right-hand corner of the, ceiling while we're then working on the body or doing whatever it is that we need to do. And so that would be a medical death. And a traumatic death is different, that we would come on scene and somebody's like standing outside their crumpled vehicle, looking at their body inside, not understanding like what the heck. And through my telepathy, because that's how you communicate energetically, is just through intention and thought. And I developed a protocol over time because I ran so many of these calls where it was like, you're dead. You were just in a car accident. We're gonna pull you out of the car, we're gonna start CPR. So energetically I'm communicating with the soul while then we have to do the logistics of a call. But the person that had just died looks just like the body in the car, but they're see-through. And they'd usually be confused, and they'd just be like, "What's going on?" Looking around, Some of them were really scared. But then almost every single time, there would be a celestial frequency, and it's angel, but not like winged creature that
Yeah.
we hear. It's a consciousness,
It's
and
like
it's just the most nurturing, loving, beautiful, like, you just wanna go climb in its lap and just, like, snuggle in forever because it's the sweetest energy you've ever felt. And that comes on, and the person who's confused that had just died would turn to the celestial, and they would hug or embrace, and then I'd see them disappear. So, obviously, I knew the person was dead, but then we still have protocols to run. We still gotta run CPR and get them out the car and off the freeway and all of that kinda stuff, but,
uh,
yeah, very different experiences in terms of death, but you're never alone.
yeah.
Never ever did I see anybody just, like, get punted out of their body to nothing. I never saw anything dark come and, like, snatch people away, ever. The darkness lives on the human people. Tons of, like, substances, and there's all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of things that are very much of this world that are dark, But, usually it was sweet, and it's like taking off a heavy coat for the person. There's a relief, and then they would transition on to the next phase.
That's so fascinating. I don't I doubt you know much about my story, but I was in a rollover car accident 19 years ago, and my 2 youngest children, who were 10 and 8 at the time, Carrie and David, were thrown from the car, and they passed away that day. And it was a few years later because from my I had been driving the car. From my vantage point, I could see that they had been there's so much more to this, but I'm just gonna give you the little piece because I wanna confirm what you're saying. The from my vantage point, it looked like they were a football field away from me in the grass on the side of the highway, but I saw these people around them, and it wasn't until years later, honestly, that I realized those weren't people. Now, I think there were physical people there, there were a couple of people, but I started to realize it's almost like my angels came in and said, "Julie, how many cars did you see parked on the side of the road?" I'm like, "I remember seeing the ambulance." There would have had to been cars parked on the side of the road for that to be people, and it was many years later that I realized I was seeing the spirit world. I was seeing the angelics. I was and possibly family members coming to greet my children, and I know now that I had an experience with them in the spirit realm as they were passing. But I didn't understand that at the time, and it's taken a while, just like you talk about, like, having had that near-death experience, that it takes a while to integrate that and to start to have that understanding, and that's why I feel like these conversations are so important, because, Sarah, by you sharing your story and your experiences, and especially, like, your broad experience in this medical arena where you're seeing people pass, and we had somebody else recently, and I just think this is such a gift that you're giving people for them to understand that their loved ones did not leave alone, that they were always there's so much, having worked in the grief field for a few years, there's so much concern about whether or not their loved ones were, they're concerned that they weren't there when they died, or there's all these concerns on this human level, but on the other side, there's no concerns, it's all taken care of, and so I just really appreciate your perspective on that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah,
Thank you too, and bless you, mama. That's not an
yeah.
easy one, and most people don't survive that. I'm losing children traumatically, most people don't survive. So
It's yeah, it was hard, but, what is so as you and I loved this message too that you just, shared briefly, was this idea that you began to feel that these gifts that you had been given, and like you said, everyone has gifts. It's not that, that anybody is special in that way. It's just we all have different gifts, and meant to. We're meant to. It's like I say all the time, we all know how to walk, we don't all know how to play basketball. Like, so we all have spiritual gifts and senses, but that doesn't mean that we're all meant to be a medical medium, for example, or medical intuitive, or a spiritual medium, like the work that I do. But what how did you begin to integrate that? And I imagine in between the initial kind of activation and becoming an ENT, you were working through a lot of these addictive patterns that you had picked up, probably largely because of not only your trauma, but also shutting down your gifts because you did want to feel different. Uh, Just bring
totally.
us forward.
So, started working, so like I said, 15 years. So, South Central Los Angeles into Bay Area, into Sacramento 911, very, very beautiful. I had met my kid's dad, and also firefighter, paramedic, now battalion chief, and we had moved to the Bay Area. And so by this time, I had become more veteran with it. So, here's the thing: it's all alpha dog, like type A SWAT dudes, and fire captains and stuff. And so I don't want to be the weird girl who like sees colors and dead people, so I'm still trying to like fit in
Well,
because
I'm
I
hearing your story, and I'm like, "This would make an amazing miniseries or a
totally, yeah, totally. My
TV
my
show."
book side note, my book was in contract with Hollywood, for, production, and Hollywood is all weird right now, it's all shut down, but anyway, that's a different thing. It'll happen. It'll happen in the perfect time. So, as far as people could feel on calls, but I still didn't have language for it because I was still closeted and I was still scared. But the more calls I ran, I mean, you can't hundreds of deaths and dead bodies and
Yeah.
thousands of calls and different experiences with people. And it just took me out of my own shit and it showed me the reality of other people. And if you're stuck in your own misery or you're so depressed or you can't like get out of whatever, go help somebody else. Get out of your bubble and get yourself into something that is not in your typical wheelhouse and it will pull you out because I was really shown like I came from some stuff, girl. Like what I came through physically, the violence level was pretty insane. And the other people go through that and more. So it gave me compassion for the human experience. We are by nature, very type A first responders. We are a unique breed because we run towards what everybody else is running away from. Now, the reason that we're like this, at least for myself, is because I come from such violence and extreme darkness that it's just totally normal to me. Like South Central LA 911 was like, "Yep, this fits," right? Because it just was what I grew up with. So as far as subconscious programming, it was the violence and the traumas and the chaos was very normal to my system. Thank goodness there's people like us, right? That we can go into those environments. We do have to take care of ourselves, and that's a whole other thing. But for me, still wasn't super out about my abilities, but they could always feel it. And they're like, "Grace, what are you doing?" And I was like, "I don't know," because there was just all of this energy moving through me, or I'd be communicating with the person that's dying and like navigating family, and they could feel something was happening. So over the course of my time, I started opening up. And then the neat thing, Julie, here I thought I was this like weirdo who was like condemned, and so many other people, doctors, nurses, firefighters, paramedics, even cops. Me too. Me too. And then
Wow.
we expand beyond that. And I mean, there's billions of us. Now, the sensitives, energetically sensitive people, now I know that. I wish I had known that 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So as I started,
Everybody closeted, everybody
yeah,
everybody pretending like they don't sense that or feel that or understand that
totally.
and trying
And
to run away from it, and then all of a sudden you start realizing, "Oh, wait, we're all closeted. What if we opened the closet doors and we
yeah.
started to communicate these things?"
Totally.
Wow.
There's nothing to fear in it. That's it's like normalized, at least for me now. And that's how I help a lot of people now. It's like we just normalize whatever they got going on and help them to understand why they're wired the way that they are and how to navigate, etc. So as I was running these calls and I was having these experiences, then I got to the point where I had to heal myself and I had to get a handle on what this is. Why do I see stuff? Why do I hear things? Why do I know things? Like, what is this? Right. And so I'm not the super mystical like woo. And props to those people who resonate with that. I'm more like grounded in the trenches. We got to handle this and make it like land. Because to me, if we are working with energetics, but it's not going to like help you in your everyday life, what's the point? That's to me, right? And so
Makes sense.
I started to get a real good understanding of okay, clairsentience is feeling everything deeply. And then being an empath is absorbing. So I was doing those things. Clairvoyance is seeing everything. And then clairaudience is hearing, claircognizance, precognizance, and mediumship and channeling. And like, okay, so I've got all of these things. So which is your strongest gift? Start there. Okay. For me, seeing and then feeling. And so seeing, there's protocols that I developed over time, right? Just because you can see it, you guys, doesn't mean you have to do anything with it. We're not chronically on duty, you know? So if you're sensing things, it's not always appropriate. Like one of my biggest lessons in this was early on when I first started to go through meditation groups and energetic and psychic gift activation groups and put language to this stuff as I got all excited. And then I just was in Target in the bread aisle and I saw some chick's dead grandma stand behind her. And I was like, oh, your grandma's. And I just said it. And this girl did not have a good relationship with the grandma. It opened up a whole can of worms in Target bread aisle, right? And that's not doing anybody any service. So, boy, did I learn a lesson. Invite only. Just because you can
Mhm.
see it doesn't mean it's for you to do anything with. And so I had to really rein it back in and get a handle on that because integrity with this is paramount. And having an understanding of the gifts are always there, the sensitivities are always there, but the person is on their own unique journey. And only if they're open and doing their own explorative work and willing do we then go ahead and move forward with it. But yeah, that began, oh, girl, I've been doing this a long time now, 20 plus years of self work and trauma integration and somatic trauma therapy and plant medicine ceremonies and shamanism and tantra and kundalini and yoga and meditation, all the spiritual experiences. I was this seeker thinking that something was going to magically, fix me or heal me or make it all make sense. And I would get great information or have a wonderful experience, but then you got to go back and do your laundry. You still gotta pay your power bill. Like,
Mhm.
there's still life. And so I really began to understand like, okay, there's higher consciousness awareness. All of these gifts have specific ways that you can use them, times that are appropriate, times that are not. And then ultimately, how do we make it work for us in our real life, in our everyday life? And it's not about being all shiny, happy, kumbaya, sitting in lotus on your yoga mat, like, all serene all the time. That's not reality. This is a dualistic paradigm. Life is crunchy. We've got contrast. That's the reality of it. It's about nervous system regulation. It's about grounding, taking care of your physical body. The more willing you are to go down into your own shit, the more power you'll have in terms of up and out for your own giftedness. A lot of times there's bypassing and just wanting to like, I'm ascending to the 11D. And I'm like, great, you're always there because there's trillions of dimensions simultaneously. What are we doing here? How
Mhm.
is it that we land in the body? How is it that we like navigate? Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So much wisdom in what you just said. I do wanna highlight a couple of things that you said. One is, like, the idea that the invitation, somebody asking versus and what I saw when you shared that, as I saw somebody with a closed door and we're
Mhm.
just knocking down the door and coming through.
Mhm.
Versus they open the door and invite in, and so I love that. I think that is beautiful advice for any experience, whether it's a stranger in the grocery store or it's a family member
Mhm.
that, an adult family member. Children, a little different, like, we are invited as their parents to give some guidance, but, um, so I love that piece of it, and then also this idea, like I said earlier, we can all walk, but we don't all play basketball. A basketball player with natural abilities still receives training to become a player at a higher level. And so I love the fact that you're talking about like exploring these different things because yes, it's internal,
Mhm.
but also there's an external opportunity for us to learn to use the instruments that are internal. I I don't even know what question I have on that. I just wanna kinda highlight those pieces. Just, like I said, so much wisdom that you've shared in your experience, and I know this is going to be so helpful for people. What are some of the things you spoke about grounded spirituality. When you think of grounded spirituality or you think about nervous system regulation and this duality that we live in and trying to balance that and create a whole self where we're living in the physical while also connected, what are some of the maybe one or two practices or skills or ideas that help people the most to understand that?
Authenticity above all. Spirituality has become kind of a supermarket condensed, like a lot of packaging out there and a lot of, it's become an industry. And there's a lot of buzzwords and key phrases. And sometimes people think that they're not doing it right if they're not a certain way, wearing the right things or saying the right words or whatever. And I did all that. And I kept circling back to like, I'm like a bull in a china shop. And you can't run as many 911 calls as I have and like not be real about, yeah, but there is darkness, you guys. Like, we don't want to address this kind of stuff. And so everybody's on their path with it. But I'm really going to advocate authenticity and what that means for you. Each individual's authentic expression is their own unique gift. So always explore and take little bits that resonate from different sources, pull it back, let go of everything else, and then always listen to your own guidance above all. Because, like you're saying, everything is like a mirror, and there's a key and a lock, which then ignites something within us to grow. But outsourcing power or trying to be spiritual is a very common, like, not, it's not even a mistake. It's part of the gig, right? Like
Right.
the spiritual ego is so rampant, girl. Like I was in EMS forever with firefighters, and those guys love themselves. They got calendars and parades and stuff. There's more ego in the spiritual world than in the fire department, and that is saying something, right? In the spiritual world, it's cloaked. Right? They're acting as though they're somehow, like, above being human or being triggered, and again, it's mostly, an act, because the reality is we all have good days, bad days, we got hormones, we got aches, pains, we got bills, we got kids, we got life. So authenticity to you, what that means to you. Now, as far as grounding, we wanna understand, what does that even mean? So many people are so uh, disassociated, overstimulated. Cortisol is just dumping in their system constantly. They're always amped. They can't sleep. And so it's like their consciousness is not even in their body most of the time because they're just like so terrified all the time. So first thing is we got to ground and cool the system down. So if you're fear mongering with the news or like on social media, just give it a break for a second, like go outside, sit in the sun. So very basic things, breath, movement, hydration, and sunlight. Just those things will help you to feel better in your body. Movement is one of the fastest, easiest ways to ground yourself. And we're talking about bringing your consciousness, and this takes guts to come back down into the body, because being in the body means you got to feel it. And most people don't want to feel it. They just want to stay above it and they just want to stay outside of it, or they keep on projecting. It's you, it's you, it's you. I'm outraged. It's you. It's like, no, that's not it, you guys. It's you. So coming into the body, and there's just little things like figure out what's triggering your cortisol. What is the stress predominantly? Is it your mind racing, spinning out about money or World War III or politics or whatever? Normal.
I
But
can
again,
feel everyone's cortisol raising just as you said those words.
everybody's like, "Oh my god!" Like most people are living as though they're holding on to a charged wire and being electrocuted.
Yeah.
That's not conducive for health. That's not conducive for
Mhm.
using your gifts. That's not conducive for, like, just being, and we're in a reality that the construct right now is designed to do that, is to externalize our power, but more of us are like, "Well, wait a second, actually, it's not all that bad. People are really nice." Like, if you really look around, people will let other people in or hold the door for them or help them up or help them with their bags. Like, there's always helpers, right? So as far as grounding, we're talking about getting into the body, exercise, breath, movement, sunshine, clearing the energy field. Again, we talked about what that is. Water is great for that. So Epsom salt baths, lavender spritz, rose spritz, sage, palo santo, juniper. There's a million. And then from there, we really just want to begin to, yeah, focus on the health of the physical body. So it's coming down into the body and turning off the things that are tripping you out. If you're freaked out about something, just stop looking at it for a while. And you'll start to see how addicted you are to it because you're addicted to the cortisol. Because if you're not amped and always panicked, like, who are you? Right? It gives people a
Mm-mm.
purpose. But it's like, okay, let's calm down, go outside, lay in the sun, have a conversation with your neighbor, and you're gonna and look at the trees on the sky. You're gonna realize that in this moment, we're not gonna die, right? There's no huge crises. So, really beginning the process of calming and cooling the system. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much. That is beautiful, beautiful, advice. And it's interesting that you, mentioned that because I was recognizing this week that the way because I'm on social media, I don't love being on I'm at that point where I'm just like, I just really don't even wanna be on social media anymore, but also it's an avenue to get these messages out there, so it's a push and pull of that platform. But what I noticed this week is that certain challenges that I'm moving through, that there will be posts where they're, identifying that challenge or giving more context to that challenge. And I will look at that post, and all of a sudden, my feed is just full of those kind of posts, which are in many ways reactivating the challenge.
Right.
So we have to be so careful and so aware that that our environment, not only our brain is kind of wired to be looking for the problems, but our environment
Mhm.
that we have put ourselves in is creating more of it, is keeping us in the drama, is keeping us in the challenge. And it made me realize that I want to be less on social media and less of absorbing these types of messages that, yes, there's a problem, there's a problem, there's a problem, there's a problem. We're not getting, here's the solution, here's the solution, here's the solution. We're getting problem, 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 problem. So, yeah, turning off the TV, turning off social media. What you said is so practical and beautiful and simple. The other thing that you mentioned that I again want to highlight is this idea that we have to do things a certain way or that things need to look a certain way in this spiritual space. I think the expectations that I am going to experience spirituality the same way Sarah does, you know, and that I'm not doing it right unless I'm able to connect the same way Sarah does. And my experience has been with people is that everybody's gonna experience it differently, and the expectations that it should look a certain way is really holding us back.
Totally.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
um,
Because it's each individual expression. Your consciousness, your human experience is just as valid as mine, equal to mine, and different in our own ways. So the way that you're experiencing things is going to be unique, and that's perfect for you. There's a lot of people, I want to see energy. I want to see energy as though somehow seeing energy is going to somehow make them better. And it's like, okay, I get it, right? There's a lot of ways that you can like have an experience where you see energy, but it's really about like what are you wanting with it and why? And working with your system because your system and your gifts, girl, I can't do math for anything, right? But like I got all this other like we all have strengths and weaknesses, right? Like I said, I'm very tiny, so I can't reach the top shelf for anything. We all have strengths and weaknesses, right? But please, please always remember that you are your own greatest teacher and healer. You're the guru. And there's a ton of people in this world trying to sell you that they've got the solution and it's their way. One of the things I noticed, it's like the Reiki people are here, the craniosacral people are there, shaman people are there, plant medicine. Nobody's communicating. I'm like, you guys, it's all the same world. Like y'all want to like powwow, but no, we know the way. And fortunately, we're at the very beginning stages of the fall of the guru, which I'm actually really happy about because personally, we're all gurus in our own lives if you're willing to take responsibility. And one step further, everything is God. Everything
Yeah.
is consciousness. If it's part of this human experience, it's part of it. I have had the most profound experiences with homeless people in back alleys or crack addicts or prostitutes where I was looking into their eyes and we had the most mind-blowing experience and exchange because it's like recognizing them as God. They're having their experience. I'm having my experience, but there's no spirituality as we know it in Western concept it's become like a supermarket. It's become a concept. And so again, if you just kind of soften and be like, okay, well, what feels good to me? Go explore the different modalities and keep your power. Keep your power. Go explore and figure out what works for you and let go of what doesn't work for you. And then bring it back, and you'll find your own way of offering or relating or communicating. And that is authenticity. Spirituality is so overused, man. Hashtag spirituality. Okay, like ad nauseum. But now it's authenticity. And authenticity is about the reality of the human condition, which is limited, finite. We have gravity, we have duality, we have darkness, we have all of these things. And so how do we navigate that? How are we real about that? That's my wheelhouse.
I love that. I don't know if you're familiar with, Vinnie Tolman. I don't know if you've come across him, but, there's so much in what you're sharing that's reminding me of his experience, first of all, as a near-death experiencer who actually was dead in a body bag and experienced the EMT being lit up by and receiving a message that this one's not dead,
Uh-huh.
and that he undid the body bag and started to revive him after he'd been dead for more than 45 minutes. So that piece of it, and then one of the first messages he got in heaven was about authenticity, that was the first lesson, was authenticity. So I appreciate you highlighting those things and yeah, Vinny is amazing, and I love that you said that about the guru because I've been seeing this, my friends have gone are the days of the guru, like, yeah, it's like the guru is us. We are the guru,
Yeah.
and it's connecting internally and not being afraid of the being more curious about the shadow, being more curious about why do I react that way? Not from a place of condemnation, but more of a real true curiosity of what would I anyway, I am loving this. You said something much earlier about this idea of, you know, seeing the auric field, knowing what people were thinking or, kind of having a feel for who people were and why they were doing certain things. I feel like that's where we're headed. Like, people have a very I think people in general feel like they can hide behind a persona, but I don't think that's as true as and I think it's gonna be less true as we move forward because, like you said, we're moving from this Newtonian
Mhm.
experience into this quantum experience, and bring those as we all start coming out of the closet and sharing and cross-referencing from different modalities and different cultures and so forth, the knowingness and the being able to see behind facades and understand what people are thinking and feeling, like, there's not as much privacy as we think there is. That's all I'm saying.
Totally. It also goes into, more of a holistic, right? Where we're understanding physical, mental, emotional, energetic, and spiritual are all equal and valid parts and need to be addressed equally. It's not just like, "Oh, we're gonna treat your heart, cardiac," or it's like everything is connected, right? And so having more of that understanding. That said, it's a very popular thought stream right now around ascension. And it is what it is, and it's not that we're going to ascend, that we're human for a reason. So we're
Yep.
all of this consciousness, we're all of infinity, and we're in trillions of different dimensions, having thousands of simultaneous right now experiences. It's not past life, you guys. It's parallel life. It's all happening now. You don't understand it unless you do DMT or ayahuasca or Kundalini or whatever, and you have your heightened consciousness experience, and then you understand everything as consciousness. The point is to be human. The point is to have choice and autonomy and freedom and preferences and ego. The egoic infrastructure gets such a bad rap, but it's part of the design here. It's not
Mhm.
going anywhere. Even if you have a transcendental experience, it comes back within 7 to 10 days, like always. And unless there's a psych break, but that's a whole other thing. And this is about like embracing humanity. Where are we going? People are waking up to more of their spiritual, energetic nature. They're wanting more holistic solutions. We're not going to be light beings living on earth. That doesn't even make sense. This is a material plane with duality, the two poles that create the contrast for that. And understanding, though, that it's an awakening of your own consciousness, your own internal work, your willingness to own your power, your willingness to own your own shit, your willingness to not project onto other people things. And like you said earlier, why am I reacting this way? Is this an old program? Am I ready to integrate that? When we do that, the physical body becomes healthier and we have more access to those subtle currents. And then we're looking for more holistic solutions. And this is kind of where the human species is going in terms of quote new earth. It's not that we're walking around in light bodies.
Yeah.
It's not in this plane. We're already doing that in other planes, like right now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I also, just recently, we're all going through challenges, like you said, it doesn't matter whether you're aware of consciousness, spirituality, like we're all going through challenges. And I was having this experience over the last couple of days where I was thinking about how do I want to look at the situation differently? Because I've learned over the years that when I allow myself to look at it from a different perspective, I can really transform my experience with it from that different perspective. But also the bypassing thing, like when we get to that point where we're feeling like, we have to be right on all the time, responding correctly, being the perfect, like all of a sudden you start feeling like, I'm not here to be a robot.
Right.
We're not here to be a robot. We're here to be human. We're here to be activated, to be triggered, to have these experiences. So I'm really appreciating everything you're sharing. So thank you so much for that. What just a couple of things. What are first question I like to ask everybody is what spiritual practice do you do on a daily or weekly basis that helps you? You could name just I know there's probably a few, but, um, something that
I do. Well, I ground every day through exercise, breath, sunshine. Being outside in nature is a great one for that. Drink a ton of water, you guys. Most people are dehydrated chronically. And just those things will help you to feel a lot better. I like Vipassana a lot. I've done 2 different Vipassanas. It's like a 100-hour, 10-day, very, intense, meditation type. And so that type of meditation works well for me. It doesn't work well for everybody. Always find and know this too, there is no right way to meditate. Some people are just not wired to sit there and try to like shut their brain up. It just won't work for them. So a moving meditation through walking or tai chi or yoga or qigong or tantra or whatever, that's may work better for you. So don't, think you're doing something wrong if you can't sit there and keep your mind still. Most people can't, okay? So I'll do Vipassana in the morning and then I do visualization. And I've also been working on like parts work lately because I find that It never ends, you guys, just so you know.
Oh,
I've been doing
oh,
this for 25 years, right? And yes, we'll have huge breakthroughs and huge releases, and then we're like, "I did it!" And then we go on through life, and then there you get into a new relationship, or your kids or teenagers all of a sudden, and you're just, like, triggered to all hell. So it's never ending, so just have compassion with yourself, and then pick up tools along the way that are feeling good at the time, right? So I've picked up so many different tools, and I'll use different things for a while and then just, like, let it go, and it doesn't, necessarily resonate anymore, and that's okay. That's kind of how this goes. And so for me, exercise has always been key. It's helped me really stabilize in the body and regulate my cortisol because of the stimulus. So movement for me is best. If I am doing a meditation, for me, it's like a Vipassana or a visualization. I listen to binaural audio quite a bit, and just don't take it so seriously.
I love that. Fun. Yes, I couldn't agree more. Yes, let's have fun.
Yeah, what about
We're
that? Remember
we're in
that?
a yeah. We're on the Earth playground, I wanna start thinking of Earth more as a playground than a school, because I think when we start thinking of it as a school, we're like, "Oh, I gotta be learning lessons all the time." But no, it's a playground, it's a place to play, it's a place to experiment, it's a place to explore.
Yeah.
What last words of wisdom would you like to share, and also share where people can connect with you, Sarah?
You can find me at sarahkgrace.com, Sarah with an H, kgrace.com, and all my stuff is on there. I've got one-on-one sessions, groups. I have specific things for energetically sensitive people. We got you covered on all the ways. What is the biggest thing? Live your life now. Please live your life now.
Beautiful. This has been an amazing conversation, as I knew it would be. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I really appreciate you, and thanks to everybody who watched.